Hello, everybody. My name is Chase Robinson. I'm the director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of Asian Art, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all. We have visitors joining us from literally all over the world. I've been taking a few notes. Alaska, Florida, Mexico, Toronto, Brazil, DC, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Big shout out for New Hampshire. Thank you all for joining us tonight for what will be a wonderful evening. I'm really honored to be welcoming you to our virtual Lunar New Year Eve reunion dinner. It's going to highlight holiday-inspired cooking demonstrations with three of the region's foremost Asian American chefs. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with the National Museum of Asian Art, we're very fortunate to hold in trust an exceptional set of collections of art from literally every corner of Asia, including the Middle East. Fantastic Chinese bronzes, Japanese prints, Indian manuscripts, Korean ceramics, and much, much more. I do hope you're taking some time to explore our collection online, and for those of you who are able, do visit us here in person when you are able. As our nation's museum, our goal is to provide a window onto the arts, cultures, and societies of Asia and all of their wonderful diversity. Tonight's program is a terrific example of how we do precisely that. Indeed, how better to understand a culture than through food and culinary holiday traditions. Last year, we hosted 4 online events as part of a series entitled Cuisines, the future of Asian food in America. Tonight's event demonstrates our continuing commitment to expanding that conversation about Asian American food legacies and the ways in which Asian diaspora cuisine continues to enhance our lives. Now, before I turn it over to our esteemed guests, I want to take a moment to thank the members and supporters of the National Museum of Asian Art who help sustain us. If you'd like more information about how to become a museum supporter, we put some links to explore in the chat bar on the right side of your screen. Now, I'd like to introduce you to tonight's moderator, Burmese American food curator, Simone Jacobson. A really important cultural connector, Simone and her James Beard Award-nominated chef mother, Jocelyn Law Yuan, they owned and operated DC's only full-service Burmese restaurant, Fumi. They did so from 2019 to 2022, when the ongoing COVID-19 crisis finally and very unfortunately forced them to close permanently. With nearly 20 years of experience in arts and cultural management, Simone has contributed to events here at the National Museum of Asian Art, as well as the National Museum of African American History and Culture and the Museum of Food and Drink in New York. Now, please join me in welcoming Simone Jacobson. Simone, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. It's so nice to see you again, Chase. Thank you so much for that kind introduction.
Thank you very much.
So good evening to everyone, and thank you for joining us from your diverse dining tables all over the world. As Chase mentioned, my name is Simone Jacobson, and I'm honored to be your guest curator for tonight's Lunar New Year's Eve reunion dinner. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's the dinner that's typically hosted on the eve of the new year. And at any time throughout the program, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. For starters, if you haven't already, tell us where you're joining from and tell us how you and your loved ones celebrate the new year, if you do. And if you're not among the estimated 2 billion people around the globe celebrating the year of the tiger this year in 2022, not to worry, go ahead and pull up a chair at our virtual table for the first time tonight. Now a few words about our panelists today. Hyunjung Crystal Rie grew up in Seoul, South Korea, and now resides in Washington, D.C. Crystal is an organizer of District of Cuisines, an oral history project documenting the lived experiences of Asian American restaurateurs, as well as a digital archivist at the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage. Originally from Lafayette, Louisiana, Chef Kevin Tien's culinary path included stints with celebrity chefs David Chang and Jose Andres before opening his own restaurant, Himitsu, which was named Eater DC's 2017 Restaurant of the Year. And after 3 years, Kevin made the difficult decision to close Himitsu to focus on his two current ventures, Hot Lolas and Moon Rabbit. In addition to being a James Beard finalist for Rising Star Chef, Kevin was named 40 under 40 in Washingtonian Magazine and in the Washington Business Journal. A star in his own right, Kevin competed in Iron Chef Gauntlet and is a Chopped Next Gen champion. Before becoming chef and owner of Rose Ave Bakery, Rosie Nguyen spent 10 years as a pediatric nurse in Washington, D.C. During that decade, she taught herself how to cook and bake, taking on side jobs ranging from prep cook and pastry assistant to baker and ice cream maker in order to master her craft. In 2020, Rosie took the leap from being a nurse to opening her modern Asian American bakery. Rose Ave is a reflection of her experience and expertise as a young Asian American who aims to spread love and knowledge one donut at a time. Michelin star chef Juan Tang conceptualized Rooster and Owl to develop inventive and contemporary American cuisine in a fun, collaborative environment. Chef Juan worked as a federal auditor before giving up on a steady and predictable career to follow his passion instead. Additionally, Juan worked at 3 Michelin star Jean-Georges and 1 Michelin star The Modern, and was sous chef at 1 Michelin star Dovetail in New York City. He's married to co-owner Carrie Tang, with whom he has 2 daughters, Nori and Ellie, who serve as Rooster and Owl's complaint manager and assistant to the complaint manager, respectively. So now it's time to begin the festivities. And to do that, food scholar Crystal Rie will share a brief introduction to the holiday and the many different food traditions that you might see at Asian American tables across America and in the diaspora. I'm going to invite my friend and our esteemed colleague, Crystal Rie, to join us now with her camera and her beautiful presentation. Please join me in welcoming Crystal Rie to our virtual stage. Hi, Crystal.
Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Crystal Rie, and thank you, Simone, for the warm introduction and the National Museum of Asian Art for hosting this event so we can celebrate the Year of Tiger together. Lunar New Year is a public holiday in many Northeast and Southeast Asian countries and regions. Combined with Asian diasporic communities across the world, Lunar New Year is observed by 1/4 the world's population. But there's one country that does not have Lunar New Year as a public holiday. Can you guess which country it is? It's Japan. Japan stopped following the lunar calendar during the Meiji period in the late 19th century. So they only celebrate the solar new year like the US. Next slide, please. Since the Lunar New Year has been celebrated across Asia for thousands of years by many different cultures, its celebration varies from community to community and family to family. Even the zodiac animals have regional variations. The animals you see in this slide are based on Chinese zodiac. In Korea, we use a sheep instead of a goat. The Vietnamese zodiac replaces the ox and rabbit with the water buffalo and cat. Similarly, you can see some similarities and differences among various cultures in their Lunar New Year food traditions. Next slide, please. I'd like to start off with how my Korean community celebrates New Year. Korean New Year is called Seol, referring to both January 1st of Gregorian calendar and Lunar New Year. The days of New Year holiday are called Seolnar. Next slide. In the morning of Seolnar, family members perform ancestor rites called chare, led by senior male members and joined by the remaining family members. After serving the ancestors, the whole family gather around the dining table and enjoy delicious food such as namu, seasoned vegetables, tiny pancakes, and japchae, sweet potato noodle mixed with vegetables and meat. In the photo, you can see bowls of rice cake soup called tteokguk at the end of the ritual table. Next slide, please. Tteokguk is particularly important because it is said you only get 1 year older if you eat it. As a kid, I was eager to eat many bowls of tteokguk so that I could get older faster. But now I stay away from tteokguk at all costs. These days, tteokguk is commonly made with beef or beef bone broth. During the Joseon period in the late 19th century, people also use pheasant or chicken to make the soup. Tteokguk recipes also have regional variations. Coastal regions make broth with oyster or seaweed. In some regions in North Korea, it is more common to eat dumpling soup or use a different shape of rice cake that looks like a tiny snowman. Tteokguk is also loaded with symbolism. The clear broth indicates a fresh start. The lengthy rice cake is connected to long life, and the thinly sliced rice round shape is associated with coins or wealth. This theme of longevity and prosperity echoes in other cultures' New Year feasts as well. Next slide. In China, Lunar New Year is called Chunjie, which translates as Spring Festival. As you know, China is a huge country with over 50 ethnic minorities, so there are many variations of food traditions, particularly between North and South. But there are a few holiday staples that symbolize prosperity and long life. For instance, jiaozi dumplings resemble gold ingots used as currency in the Ming Dynasty, so it is believed to bring wealth. Another staple dish is fish, because the word abundance and fish are both pronounced similarly as yu. Eating whole fish is said to bring fortune in the year to come. The Chinese New Year celebration ends with the Lantern Festival on the 15th day. People traditionally eat tangyuan, which is a sweet rice bowl filled with red bean, sesame, or peanuts. It is a meaningful dish because the word tangyuan sounds similar to reunion in Chinese. Next slide. Lola is the Tibetan New Year and celebrated on various dates depending on different regional customs. Most Tibetan and diasporic communities celebrate Lola around early March, following Tibetan calendar. But Amdo Tibetans in the northeastern part of Tibet celebrate Lola around the same time as Lunar New Year. Next slide. Similar to the New Year celebration in other cultures, all family members gather around the dining table and eat Tibetan dumplings, momo, that you've seen from the previous slide, and boiled yak and lamb meat, and milk tea, as well as noodle soup, wishing for a long, healthy life. Next slide. Last but not least, the Vietnamese New Year holiday is called Tet Nguyen Tan and often shortened as Tet. One of the staples of Tet is sticky rice called bánh chưng and bánh tét. Both dishes refer to a glutinous rice cake containing mung bean paste and pork wrapped in green leaf. In the north, bánh chưng, which is square-shaped rice cake, is more common, while the circular-shaped bánh tét is more common in the south. According to a legend, Banzeng symbolizes earth and the fondest symbolizes sky. Next slide. In addition, many families share a variety of dishes, including boiled chicken, pickled vegetables, candied fruits, and so on. But one important dish to remember is tikka tao, which is braised pork with eggs, because we'll learn how to make this dish next. And now let's enjoy three special cooking demonstrations with Chef Kevin Tien, Rosie Nguyen, and Juan Tang. Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Tien and I'm the executive chef here at Moon Rabbit. We are a modern Vietnamese restaurant here in the Wharf. Today I am making a traditional Vietnamese dish. This is my grandmother's recipe. We're making thịt kho. It is a caramelized, braised pork belly. Now we eat this every year for Lunar New Year's, but if I was very good at my grandma's house or very good for my mom, they would make it for me on special occasions. So let's start cooking. First off is pork belly. This is about 1.5 pounds of pork belly that's been cubed up. We're gonna start marinating this in a little bit of fish sauce and then some fresh ground black pepper. And once you get everything like fully coated, you'll actually let this set on the side and marinate anywhere from like 30 minutes to 2 hours. All right, and the next step is we're gonna begin to make our caramel. The foundation of a lot of like Vietnamese food is like really good caramel. So what we do is I have a larger kind of stock pot. I'm gonna turn this up to medium high. And what I'll do is I'm adding about 600 grams of sugar, 60 grams of water, just to kind of make almost like a slurry or paste out of the sugar. And then what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of making sure all the sugar is wet. And it's not necessarily dissolved, but mixed evenly with the water. I have my rubber spatula. And we'll let this sit alone until it starts turning like an amber color on the edges. Some of the knife work I've already done prior are our golden sliced Thai chilies, our diced shallots. So now that we have this nice caramel color, you'll want to pull your pot off the heat so it doesn't continue to cook too much and get burnt. So we have this nice, beautiful caramel. What we'll do is we're going to add in 3 red bird-eyed chilies, 1 cup of shallots diced, and this will actually slow down the cooking process and it'll start cooking in this caramel. Once you add it in, we can bring it back to the heat, put it back on, and we'll let this cook for about a minute just to kind of let it sweat a little bit, the aromatics come out. All right, so now that it's been sweating and the flavors have been released from the shallots and the Thai chilies, we have our pork belly that's been marinating from anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. In today's video, a few minutes. We're gonna add this in. Be very careful to put it in so you don't get any of this caramel like splash on you. So now we have this pork belly in the pot, and we're just gonna kind of like let it start getting a little bit of color in the caramel. You know, the pork belly will have brought the temperature of this caramel down, so we'll let it get back up to temp. So this pork belly is starting to develop a little bit of color. So now we're gonna add the ginger ale in to the pork belly and the caramel. Typically, the recipe calls for Coco Rico. It's a sparkling coconut soda. So imagine seltzer water with coconut flavor. But today I'm doing ginger ale because I like the extra ginger flavor in my tikal. So now what we'll do is I'm giving this a good mix so it mixes evenly, but we're gonna bring it up to a quick boil, and then you'll reduce it and you'll let it simmer for anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, but it's all up to you. It's really how soft of the texture you like in your pork belly. So with a little bit of camera magic, we actually have a pot that I started this morning of kind of like our finished product. So as you can see, the pork belly's been braising for a while. There's a nice sheen on top of like the pork fat rendering. You can scoop some of that out if you want, but I honestly love it a lot. And then finally, we can't forget about the boiled eggs. Depending on your texture, you can do anywhere from a soft to a hard boil. So really, if I know I'm gonna eat this fairly soon, or with the same day, I'll put kind of the eggs in and let it heat up with the broth. And then your egg's gonna absorb a lot of that awesome caramel pork belly coconut flavor, and your eggs will turn brown. Sometimes when you leave it in just a shallow pan, just part of it gets brown. So when I was a kid, I used to look for the egg that was the brownest of all of them and had the most even color, because I know that's the egg that absorbed the most flavor in the dish. And I secretly went after that. And you can see some of the eggs are already starting to take on the color and flavor of the broth. So this dish was always served family style. Everyone had their own bowl for rice at the table, and then my grandma or my mom would just put this right in the center of the table. We'd serve it with a ladle. So now that it's bubbling and it's just about ready, we're gonna go ahead and garnish, and it'll be good to go, and it's ready for dinner. Scallions. And move this to the table. You know what? I love green onions, so we'll just put it all in there. And then we'll garnish it with some cilantro as well. Some people might be turning an eyebrow up at me right now for garnishing with cilantro, but I love the freshness of the cilantro on this dish. And that's it. We've made tikal. This is my grandma's recipe, passed down to my mom, which has been passed down to me. So hopefully the recipe didn't deviate too much. It's still tasty, but not as good as my grandma's. This year for Lunar's New Year's, I'll be celebrating it here at Moon Rabbit at the Wharf. We're actually working on some really awesome programming to do a big food festival with all your favorite chefs, perhaps with the two other ones that are on this video as well. I believe this is the first time they're hearing about it, so surprise. So happy New Year's from myself and the Moon Rabbit team, or Chukmung Namai.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Rosie Nguyen of Rose Bakery, a modern Asian bakery in Washington, D.C. Today, I'm going to show you guys how to make a pineapple ginger tart tatin. Making this today in relation to Lunar New Year because growing up, I would go to my friends and family's homes with my mother in Philadelphia, and in particular, we would always go to my godmother's house. I, as the younger person, would come with these greetings and blessings for my godmother, and in return, we got these beautiful red envelopes called lisi, and they were always filled with money. So as a child, very exciting things. The next thing we would do is gather in the living area, and she would bring out a tray of dried fruits, nuts, and seeds. This tray was called the Tray of Togetherness. And basically, that's all Lunar New Year is. togetherness with friends and family, and wishing each other luck, fortune, wealth, and good health. So today, I'm capturing the flavors of the tray that I had to eat as a child, which, to be honest, I didn't love to eat just because it was just dried fruits and nuts. And as a child, I wanted to eat cakes and other things. But in this tray, we had dried pineapple, coconut, ginger, and all different kinds of components that meant different things. There's a lot of symbolism when it comes to Lunar New Year. So I'm taking the flavor of pineapple and ginger, and I am bringing it to life in a classic French tart tatin. So I'm going to show you how to make the pineapple ginger tart tatin. There's going to be two parts to this. First is going to make the dough. Second part will caramelize the fruits, and then after that, you just pop it in the oven and call it a day. In a bake bowl, we have 225 grams of all-purpose flour. It's going to be about 2 cups. Then we have cold cubed butter, 150 grams, which is going to be about a stick and a half. And make sure, it's very important that it's very cold. So we're going to dump that into our flour mixture. And we're going to mix our flour and butter together so that it's nice and crumbly. And then we're going to use our pastry cutter. And we're going to cut into the butter, into the flour. And our goal is to get coarse and pea-sized butter pieces. And you want to just clear the blades. And I think we're just about there. Doesn't have to be perfect. At this point, we're going to slowly add our water. Remember, everything should be cold. So the butter is cold, the water is cold, and that's going to keep the texture of the butter so that when it bakes, it's going to puff up and create these puffy, flaky layers. So we're just going to wet the dry spots, move it around, and we can feel that it's starting to come together, which is perfect. You want to feel like the dough is starting to come together like this. It's going to look a little rough and shaggy, but that's exactly what we're looking for. And I'm just gathering the drier bits and kind of kneading it a little bit. We're going to take our ball of a dough, start working on our counter surface that's floured. Make sure there's flour on the bottom. Grab our rolling pin, flour that as well, and we're going to start rolling it out. And we want to go in a linear direction so that it's a rectangle, because we're going to fold it and make it into a laminated dough. Okay, we have this long shape now, so we're just going to fold it letter fold. And all that means is if you imagine this cut into thirds, you're going to take one corner and fold that over to the third. And you're going to take the other corner and fold that over. We're going to get some more flour. Roll it out linear again. Remember to keep moving the dough around so that it doesn't get stuck. One more time. We think about the thirds. We're going to fold one over to the third and then one flap on top. And we want it to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. Then we'll wrap it up and let it rest a little bit in the refrigerator while we work on our caramelized fruit. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is melt and caramelize our sugar. So in this small pan, which will be the same pan that we'll be baking our pastry in, we're going to start to melt the sugar, medium to high heat, And this is one of the things that you don't want to stir around too much. You're just going to help move it along when you start to see it melt. And we're just going to gently swirl it, gently and slowly, so that it all comes together cohesively. And then once I see it getting really brown, I might even just take it off the heat. And now that I see no more of the white sugar, we're going to add our tablespoon of butter. At this point, when you add it, it's going to sizzle a little bit, but do not be alarmed. It's going to be okay. And we're going to continue to swirl it. And this is caramel. At this point, I've added the ginger that's been grated, and this is about roughly a tablespoon. So we're going to layer in our pineapples, and we're kind of shingling it a little bit and having it come all the way around. Fruit for Lunar New Year is very important because it's about life and the fleetingness of life, and being in a Southeast Asian country, there's plentiful of tropical fruits. Fruits just play an important part in our culture every day and our celebrations. Now that we have our pineapples ready to go and in our pan, we're going to gently place our puff pastry right on top. This has been cut out to the size of our pan. So all we have to do at this point is just layer it and tuck it in. We have a preheated oven of 400 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to leave this in there for about 25 minutes until it's puffed and golden brown. It's been 25 minutes in the oven. It's been working its magic and getting puffy and caramelized in there. And this room now smells like caramelized pineapple and ginger and buttery from the dough and the puff pastry. I just can't wait to eat it. So let's pull it out and plate it and look at it in all its glory and have a taste. And here we have our tart tatin. And you can kind of see the layers from the puff pastry coming out on the sides. It just looks really homey and rustic. And now that we're going to flip it over, it's going to look very beautiful, I hope. So with this part, we're going to grab a plate that is larger than the pan. We're going to flip it over. And in one swift motion, I'm going to flip it upside down. Wasn't that easy? So easy, so beautiful, and again, the smells are out of this world. Now, all we have to do is eat it. Do you guys see this perfection? And just a messy scoop of ice cream. Perfect puff pastry. A really balanced when the ice cream comes through. It all comes together. It's very exciting when you make it, when you eat it, and when you get to share this dish with your friends and family, which I hope you do. When you all come together and gather and eat together. And I'm gonna leave with this saying, Jutmung Namai. Happy New Year, everyone. I hope you have a blessed one, full of good fortune, wealth, and health.
Hi, my name is Juan Tang. I'm the chef and owner of Rooster and Owl in Washington, D.C. We're a seasonal New American restaurant that focuses on local produce and seasonal cuisine. So the dish I'm preparing for you today is a version of something I used to eat as a kid. It's called Niangao in Chinese, in Mandarin. Basically, it symbolizes growth and prosperity for the next year. And the version I'm going to make today is really resonated with me because my daughter is obsessed with tiger, which is going to be the Lunar New Year this year. It's going to be the year of the tiger. So we're going to make something that kind of resembles the colors of tiger with tiger stripes. So as you can see, my lovely daughter has a collection of toys and books. Basically, she's obsessed. It's her spirit animal and she loves it, and which is why it's really kind of a cool thing for us to make today. So going into it, we're going to do basically a carrot mochi that's going to be a glutinous rice cake that's stuffed with black sesame paste, and we're going to finish it off with a little bit of sea salt. It's something that is a little bit less laborious compared to the traditional version. It's really tasty and really addictive, so I hope you like it. So the first step we're going to do is actually we're going to peel these carrots and we're going to get them juiced. I'm starting off with about 2 pounds of carrots. We might end up with a little bit more juice than we need, but that's okay. They're great for drinking afterwards too. It's actually one of my mom's favorite beverage to drink, fresh carrot juice. So we'll go ahead and peel these carrots. And then basically we're going to just take the little top off and a little bit of that bottom off. And then we'll go ahead and juice it. So the next part here, we're just going to measure out our ingredients for our mochi dough. Again, we're going to be using mochiko, which is a milled sweet rice or glutinous rice flour, some sugar, and some of the carrot juice that we have just juiced. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put our dry ingredients in first. So our rice flour, glutinous rice flour. By the way, despite the name, it's actually not does not contain any gluten. It's kind of just a sticky rice flour. I'm going to mix in our sugar. And then just going to mix the two together in a bowl like this. And then we're going to fold in our freshly juiced carrot juice. And then just mix until it is combined. And just keep kind of folding it until all the lumps are gone. And that's pretty much it. That's our dough. And then our next step is we're going to just prepare the tray that we're going to steam this in. So kind of line it like that. And then we're going to just pour our mixture in to the pan. And then we're going to put another layer of plastic film over it. So now that we have our mochi dough prepared and wrapped, we're going to go ahead and put it in the steamer. We're going to steam it for about 18 minutes until it's firm. So you can kind of do a steam setup a number of different ways, but for me, I have a sort of a metal pot with a rack, roasting rack at the bottom, and just a little bit of water in the bottom, and we'll close the lid to let it steam. So the next part here is we're going to measure out our black sesame seeds. So this is going to be 150 grams. We're going to get them toasted, and then we're going to flavor it with a little bit of honey and a little bit of toasted sesame oil. So the sesame seeds is going to be a little bit hard to see when they're fully toasted because of the color. So basically I rely on the smell, the scent, and also the temperature of the seeds. So periodically I'm just kind of touching it with my fingers or my hand just to feel the temperature of it, and you want it to be almost too hot to touch. You can see a little bit of smoke too, that's okay. And then we're going to just put this back into our little container. All right, so now we have our toasted black sesame. It's still hot to the touch. We're gonna just blend it into in a blender with a little bit of honey and sesame oil, toasted sesame oil. We're gonna do 75 grams of honey, and then we're gonna zero that out. And then we're gonna do 10 grams of toasted sesame oil. And then we're gonna do about 100 grams of hot water. You can just boil a little water from the stove. So everything is gonna go into the blender here. We use using a Vitamix today. So you can see the hot sesame kind of is giving off a little bit of oil. That's why it's sticking to the bowl a little bit. So we kind of just get everything out, so as much as we can. And we're gonna go ahead and pour this mixture really carefully into this hot water and everything in. Now we're gonna go ahead and put a top on and kind of just give it a blend with high speed. And we're gonna check on the mixture here. And there's our finished paste. So now this dough has been sitting for about 15 minutes. It's cool enough to touch, and it's not quite as sticky as it was before. Still has a lot of cornstarch on it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna brush a little bit of that off, roll it out, and then we're gonna stuff it with our black sesame paste that we made. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll it out so it's kind of the shape of this silk pad. Okay. So now we're gonna kind of work in batches. We're gonna cut it into quarters. All right. So once we have this piece here like that, we're gonna just do one final roll. Brush off the excess cornstarch, and then we're gonna fill the dough with our black sesame paste. I'm gonna leave a little lip at the end here, just so we can roll that at the end. But basically, we're gonna put a very thin layer evenly across the whole thing. And this black sesame is a pretty strong flavor, so I want to make sure that I'm putting on as thin of a layer as I can, so it won't overpower the final product. So again, I'm just, and that's perfect. And if you have a little corner like that, you can just simply trim that off. It's not a big deal. And finally, we're going to just finish it with a little bit of sea salt. You can use any finishing sea salt you like. So just a little sprinkle, and then we're going to roll this. So we're going to start by pinching the end here first, and then we're going to just tightly roll forward. And then we'll have this log, and we're going to just kind of shape it so that's even all the way through. And now we're going to cut pieces. We're going to cut about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch pieces. Really anything that's kind of bite size. It's perfect. And here we have it, our finished product, our carrot mochi with black sesame and finished with a little bit of sea salt. I hope you enjoy watching this demo. I had a lot of fun making it. And I just want to wish everybody happy Lunar New Year and Sunny Philo.
And to end this evening on an extra sweet note, I have the great honor of welcoming our guest scholar for the evening, Crystal Rie, along with chefs Kevin Tien, Rosie Nguyen, and Yuan Tang for the program. Back, but live this time. They're tuning in now. So please join me in welcoming our 4 panelists to the virtual stage. How are we doing, panelists?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, Simone.
Hi, Juan.
Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be here.
Thanks for having us here.
Oh, this is such a treat. This is such a treat to have all of you here. And I know we've got a lot of audience questions, so I'm doing my best to try to get their voices in the room. But before we dive into the audience questions, can you all start by telling us why you decided to make this particular dish and how it represents your family? And before you jump in, I just want to say that with the exception of Rosie, who I never have had the pleasure of meeting in person, actually one too, I guess. I feel really deeply connected to all these chefs. Our APA chef community is very small and close knit, and it's really, really a joy to have you. But I wanted to say that when I invited these chefs to come and join us, I knew they would blow it out of the water. They exceeded all of my expectations. But the decision for what you were going to make, we kind of gave all the chefs carte blanche. And so I want to hear a little bit more about why you chose these dishes and how they represent your families. So maybe let's start with Kevin because he's first in the video. So first up tonight.
Yeah, for me, that dish is something that evokes like a lot of like emotion. Just because I always can smell it on the stove at my grandma's house, and it transports me like right back there. And it's something that we always ate for special occasions. As an adult who can now cook for himself, I don't need a special occasion to make it, so I tend to make it all the time. And I always like to make it during times of like comfort, even for like the staff at our restaurant. And we had it every Lunar's New Year's, every regular New Year's, and every special occasion. So I wanted to make like my favorite dish growing up for all my favorite friends.
And Kevin, you mentioned family meal. I know for us in our restaurants, it's always been really humbling to see how you can have a dish that has all these memories for you. And when you start to share it with staff that are maybe not from that same culture, that it becomes a comfort food to them too. And so it's like a deeper connection than just food. It becomes comfort food for your extended family that's your staff too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about you, Rosie? Why did you make this delicious tatam?
I made it because it's basically what I do at Rose Ave every day is I kind of bring my memories to life into something new and fun and something I think approachable as an Asian American living in America. I feel like I wanted to just bring it up a notch. Traditional Vietnamese desserts, for me, it's not just something I want to eat or crave. So I kind of transform things and make it into something fun. So that's exactly what I wanted to do with pineapple and ginger and the flavors of Lunar New Year and into a pastry, which is Rose Ave Bakery in a nutshell.
Well, it was more than just fun. A lot of people in the chat are saying that they got one of these boxes and that it was super delicious. So I'm living vicariously through these lucky people that got one of these yummy boxes from you all. Juan, tell us about your dish. Why did you make it? I know we had a really special conversation about how it kind of, I poked you a little bit because what you do at Rooster and Owl is different. And you were sharing with us that this was kind of a cool opportunity for you to reflect a little more now that you have your own kids and your own family here.
Yeah, actually, the dish was both inspired by my past, myself as a child, and also my kids now. My oldest daughter, Nori, is obsessed with tigers, as I said in the video, and she's 3, so she's a very visual person. And I really wanted to challenge myself and make something that looks like the colors of tiger for her. So I combined it with the thing that I used to eat, which is the glutinous rice cake, and kind of paired the two combinations together, which actually makes sense in a flavor profile standpoint too. The carrots and the black sesame seeds are both kind of earthy and sweet, and has a little bit of bitterness, but we'll balance it off with the sea salt, and it's just a really good combination of flavors.
Well, most importantly, I want to know: did the joint plate managers approve?
They did. They thought it was really cool that it looked like tiger stripes, and so I think I achieved the goal in pleasing them at the very least.
Beautiful. They look so yummy. Thank you so much for that. And Crystal, our audience members were asking for a little clarification. If you could circle back to the tukok and tell us again about the meaning of the broth. I think maybe it was a little quick and also really, really interesting when you were sharing each of the ingredients. Could you talk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So tteokguk these days people usually make with beef or beef bone broth, but more traditionally because during the agrarian era, like beef is very like no, cow is very special and important animal that you can't really eat because you need them for harvesting and doing agricultural work. So people usually didn't really kill cow to eat them. So a lot of times people use chicken or pheasant to make broth for tteokguk. But these days it's more common to use beef or beef bone soup as the tteokguk's broth.
Mm-hmm. And it must have been difficult for you. We gave you a short time window because we wanted to pack so much into this program. How did you go about choosing which dishes really stood out to you from each of those cultures?
So I wanted to base off of what the chefs were cooking. And I also noticed that it's very like the chefs chose dishes that are personal to them. So there are a lot of modern tweak and their personal tweak into these dishes. So I went with more generally consumed dishes that are like must-haves for different Asian countries' Lunar New Year holiday.
Well, speaking of that, our audience was asking for the chefs to what extent your cooking is influenced by the food you ate growing up versus the techniques and flavors you encountered later on in life. And that's a tricky question because I think that to be Asian American is to be hyphenated and to not really ever separate those things, the tradition from the modern. But maybe, Juan, you can tell us a little bit about how that's been for you, and especially your approach to Rooster and Owl is a little bit different. So how does the tradition versus what you've learned along the way, how does that play into how you play in the kitchen?
I think you're right in saying that it's a product of growing up in America as an Asian American. It's just as easy for us to eat something really traditional, like maybe dim sum or something more traditional in our culture, and as well as something that's commonly found here. So a lot of what we do is influenced by what we ate as children and the flavor memories that we have in our heads. So for me personally at Rooster and Owl, we do incorporate a lot of the flavors and dishes from Asia because those are things that I'm familiar with and grew up eating. One prime example is something we start the meal off at Rooster and Owl with, which is our Hong Kong style pineapple buns. It's something I ate as a snack growing up in Hong Kong. And we kind of made it into like a shape of a dinner roll. So it's kind of a melding of two cultures together, dinner roll, pineapple buns. And, it's kind of just the perfect thing to start the meal off with. So that's something that's been on my menu since the beginning of Rooster and Owl.
I'm so hungry. I lost my focus. just thinking about that dish is so beautiful to think about what's possible, when we kind of strip the labels, and that is a part of being our authentic selves, right? Is being fully actualized in past, present, and future. And Rosie, you're the future. You have what you call an Asian American bakery. And a lot of the audience was asking about, I'm going to ask you some technical questions later, but a couple people were asking, if Vietnamese culture, if baking is an important part of your culture, and some typical Vietnamese desserts and your favorite Vietnamese desserts. So I think what people are really curious about, and I think we can summarize is, what makes you identify as Vietnamese American, but what makes Rose Ave an Asian American bakery, and what things on your menu, are coming from those favorites, whether traditional from your childhood or, your kind of modern inventions.
So I don't think baking is a huge part of Vietnamese culture and cuisine, which is why I find it kind of thrilling to do now, is to take something that I enjoy doing and I get to share with the world. And kind of, so it's a reflection of me. So the menu is me, and trying to understand everything that I grew up with and everything that I was very familiar with, and just how does that translate now into the person I am today, and everything that I've absorbed in my, in my life and in my culinary journey. So it's just a reflection of me and trying to understand being Asian American and capturing basically everything and just telling my story and my culinary journey through the food that I get to make. So it's everything. There's no Vietnamese, there's no specific culture that I'm trying to create. It's just me as an Asian American and trying to understand that and trying to capture that and bring it forth to everyone else. So favorite Vietnamese dessert, I would say, is it's called bánh cam, and it's a fried sesame ball, and it's delicious because it's glutinous. It's in Vietnamese culture, we love sticky things, so it's crispy, sticky, chewy, and there's this soft mung bean filling inside. So it's perfectly sweet. It's texturally really enjoyable, and it's something that I get almost every Sunday when I get my banh mi's and my phas and café soda, which is a Vietnamese iced coffee. So yeah, I think I summed up everything that you asked.
You got it. You got it, Rosie. Kevin, you, for somebody so young, have done so many different things. And so for me, you are in a very surprising way, the past and the future. I want to know, we had one of our audience members ask if you've learned any lessons from your other culinary ventures that you've tried to reflect in Moon Rabbit. And since Moon Rabbit is your current and most sort of in a lot of ways, I think ambitious, one, two big lessons that you've learned from the other ventures that you're taking into this one.
I would say, between from Himitsu to Emily's to Moon Rabbit, I think I've learned a lot about myself more as a person. I think my cooking technique gets better every year. At least I hope it does. But I would say for the longest time, being Asian American was kind of very hard for me, right? Because my family were refugees from Vietnam, so we came over here, and for me, they wanted me to grow up very American. What did that mean to be American? It was eating McDonald's, watching football every Sunday, and grilling in the backyard. And growing up more American, I think I didn't really connect with my Vietnamese sides a lot more. But I would say over the course of this ongoing pandemic, it kind of helps me reprioritize what I'm really interested in. And a lot of it recently is connecting with my family and our culture, and just learning more about where we came from, and having these hard conversations about what it was for them to be refugees, and what their experience was in the past, so I can learn from it now. I think anyone that's had my food knows it's not very traditional at all, and I could cook traditional food, but it will never be as good as the mommies, aunties, and grandmas cooking in Eden Center or wherever they're cooking. So I wanted to make food that's very reflective of myself, just like Rosie and Juan, and I think that's the cool part about food right now. Everyone has a very unique experience, and that's what makes everyone's food so special. And for me, I see food in America being very different. If you ask anybody what American food is, they'd say pizza, burgers, steak, but food isn't, American food isn't that anymore. It's food that we're doing now. It's the food that Rosie's doing and Juan's doing, and food that I'm doing, and the food that you guys are doing at the Me. It's America is really awesome food beyond hamburgers, even though I could crush a McDonald's cheeseburger right now.
We might have to. After those demos, we're all salivating. I've had to watch them multiple times for editing purposes, and I feel like I deserve a hamburger. But before we do that, I want to throw at you guys one of my favorite things that we've been doing in some of these food programming, which is a very quick lightning round of panelist tag. And so each of you will have 10 or 15 seconds to respond. So I'll call on one of you, and then you can tag your other panelists with a burning question or comment that you have from them from tonight. So let's start with Crystal. You can ask anybody anything.
Oh, Can I go next?
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you. All right. So Juan.
So I can ask any questions, anybody on the panel?
Anybody that they can answer in 10 to 15 seconds.
Okay. All right, Rosie, what's your favorite thing to bake?
I actually love pineapple buns, and I know you make a fantastic pineapple bun because for me, I like to make it and I like to eat it. And almost every weekend when I bake off pineapple buns for the bakery, there's always like, ones that don't make the cut, and I love eating them right out of the oven. And we do like a condensed milk butter or pineapple butter, and it's so great with coffee. Kevin, what's your favorite Vietnamese dish besides the
Oh.
one that you presented?
I think it's really funny because I'll always end up going to a pho restaurant and everyone will get pho, but I always get like the rice plate, the broken rice plate with the grilled pork. And every time I go, I was like, oh, I'll do something different. And then when the server comes up and takes the order, I'll like double back. I'm like, no, I'll get the rice. I can't do anything else. So like grilled anything on broken rice with a lot of fish sauce. And then I guess I'll throw it back to Juan. I'm gonna hype him up. He was the first Asian chef outside of Japanese cuisine to receive a Michelin star in DC. I want to know, how does it feel that you're like the one that kind of like breaks the mold and the expectations of what like fine, what excellent food can be, as like a like non-Japanese like chef. You're like our hero.
I think it's a great honor. I think all of us, we understand working hard and putting our lives into what we're doing, and to receive an award like that is just amazing, and really validates the hard work that we put in. And I hope that many more of us will receive that honor in the future, yourself included. And I think it's great. It's great to be recognized and to be representing the Asian American chefs in this region. Okay, I think I'm going to throw the question to Crystal. What's something that you like to make for New Year's for you or your family?
So I like baking galbijjim, which is braised short rib, beef short rib, because it's like kind of labor intensive and it's really delicious. So I really like making that dish.
So Crystal, do you have any closing thoughts for us or anything you'd like to share before we start to wrap up this evening?
So I guess one thing I wanted to share with everybody is that like Lunar New Year celebration is like, it varies from places and everyone share differently, and all families have their different family style of like dishes they choose to make and they enjoy eating it. So I think just celebrating the diversity of the different food traditions and how it like changes over time and in the different regions among like diaspora community is really great.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite the panelists to just go ahead and mute for a moment. But I do want to say thank you for an engaging and insightful conversation. I know that every time we do this, I just want more time. Washington, D.C. has the most amazing talent, and especially in our APA community, I'm so, so grateful to be a part of this with all of you. A special thank you to our panelists, Crystal, Kevin, Rosie, and Juan, as well as Samson Benutsu from Crew Films for video support, and of course to the National Museum of Asian Art for making this reunion dinner possible. We hope you enjoyed tonight's program and that you discovered something new. I know I did. And happy Lunar New Year to you all. Thank you so much. Good night.